In the 80s, where the Indiana Jones movie series started, I was a kid and only knew the computer game, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The story of the third Indiana Jones film is completely implemented. That's how I started to get interested in this film series. I noticed how the pixelated graphics increased my imagination. In the early 90s, I first watched the movies. The first thing that got my attention was a picture in a TV guide. It was from the movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Until then I only knew the comparable James Bond films. There are 5 Indiana Jones movies now. Every movie has a self-contained story. The first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which won several Oscars, takes place in 1936. The second film, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, is set in 1935. The third film, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, is set in 1938. The fourth film, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, is set in 1957. The fifth film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, is set in 1969. Archaeology comes to life here. When you think about who made Indiana Jones so great, the first thing that might come to mind is Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. The influence of George Lucas is particularly noticeable in the first film, but also in the last. James Mangold, the director of the fifth part, brings back those LucasArts again. But Harrison Ford is also one of the main reasons why these movies are so great. His acting works differently, unlike for example by Daniel Day-Lewis or Robert De Niro. He doesn't change his character that much. Maybe he could. This can be proven by his acting in The Mosquito Coast from Peter Weir. But what else is it that makes the movies with Harrison Ford as an actor so special? It is the fact that he gives them a soul. You get his soul-changing abilities in the movie Witness, where he got an Oscar nomination, also from Peter Weir. Another proof that Harrison Ford makes movies so special is Frantic, from Roman Polanski. This movie feels like an Indiana Jones movie in the real world. Harrison Ford created whole new worlds in the roles he played. Star Wars, later Indiana Jones, and then Blade Runner. I would love to watch a movie with Harrison Ford being the director too. Maybe something like Frantic again. I also like some parts of his life before he started his career. He was behind one of the cameras for the band, The Doors. Let us get back to Indiana Jones. Of course, the first 3 movies are very original. I know that very well. When you have found a good idea for a screenplay, more and more good ideas follow. The new ones are obviously different. Every movie has his spirit of time. The 40s have a different spirit of time than the 50s, as well as the 60s. The only thing that doesn't get lost through the ages is the adventure film from the 40s. Because the main character is an archaeologist. As a result, that our lead actor lag more and more behind the times. In Indiana Jones 5 we are traveling with an old guy. That is maybe the reason, it feels more like a city trip. The cities don't have the beautiful panoramic Spielberg look. But whatever, we already had that. The beautiful, romantic atmosphere can be seen as a symbol for the young adventure. In Indy 5, when we walking into the temple in Syracuse on the way to the tomb of Archimedes feels like everyone has the opportunity to go there. Yes, again, we're traveling with an old man. That's the difference, and so the movie doesn't copy the young man's adventures. Indiana Jones always wants to take every artifact to the museum. Because of this wishful thinking, the temples he now enters also look like a museum. It's like a reflection of his mind. That's why he's now also disgusted with insects. He longs for the sterile temple, in other words for a sterile museum. None of the movies was as deep in the jungle as the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Indiana Jones myth, which also never wanted to be one, consciously becomes less as the movie series expands. The fourth movie, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, shows us that monkeys have always been better by swinging around. The circle closes. There are again parallels to the first film. Indy becomes more of a lone fighter again. His partner from the first movie is captured several times. So, he usually goes his own way in the first movie. In the second part his partners are a boy and a woman. In the third part he shares his place with his father. In the fourth part with his son. In the fifth part is his goddaughter by his side. But sometimes she betrays Indy. A boy also occupies part of the film, but he is fighting more with Indy's goddaughter. That's what made him more of a lone fighter again, just as in the first movie. The supporting female roles get stronger with every movie. Okay, his future wife from the first part is a strong woman. She can drink tough men under the table and even killed some Nazis. But in the course of the adventure, she is more in captivity. The woman at Indy's side in the second film isn't interested in the adventure, but that's what makes her stronger. She wants to fight her way out of there. His partner in the third part knows exactly how to get what she wants. She changes sides to her own advantage and she doesn't really fight for the good. In the fourth part, Indy's evil female opponent has all the reins in her hand. In the fifth part we are again dealing with an intelligent woman who, however, also changes sides, like in the third part. But she also has a moral compass. And her life isn't run by greed. It can be seen that the mystical is becoming more and more tangible for Indiana Jones. In the first movie, he still has to close his eyes to the mystical, that comes in form of some sort of ghost. In the second film, he can already touch the mystical in form of stones, but he loses some of them and puts the others back in the place where they came from. In the third film, he can heal with the mystical in form from a grail, but he doesn't get it beyond a portal. In the fourth film, he becomes a witness to the magic of what could based on archaeology. Finally in the fifth film he steps through time. But he's only a human, and so he has finally found the place where his destiny is. Because, for Indy the last adventure is not some sort of mystical. It is the love to a woman. Shouldn't she have been a bigger part in the last Indiana Jones adventure? Maybe it's okay the way they did it, because the title here isn't called Tomb Raider, it's called Indiana Jones. This was always the focus of the saga. A tip for adult fans of the older Indy movies. As long as you are not a drug addict or an alcoholic. If you haven't seen the fifth part yet and you are a real Indiana Jones fan at heart, maybe a little bit nostalgic, you could do something to change your perception when you go to this movie. Obviously only if the substances don't long-termly affect you in a negative way. I'm telling you from experience, you'll be able to get back into the adventure more open-minded. And when you watch the movie for the second time, preferably sober, to me it felt like the old movies again. Then you recognize the magic that can be implemented with today's technology. To explain the conclusion of the fifth movie, referring to the words of Indiana Jones' opponent Dr. René Belloc, we're simply passing through history. This is history.